After years of speculation, it's official. Every bank in America has gotten the green light to sell Bitcoin to their clients. This is obviously not just massive because these banks have a combined 25 trillion, well, really it's $24.5 trillion, but it sends a massive warning to the rest of the world. Essentially, bend the knee to Bitcoin or get left behind. Now, there is a little bit of nuance here, I would say, but before I dive into all the nuance, let me break down what I'm talking about. So here we go. First and foremost, what happened yesterday is the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, basically under the U.S. Treasury Secretary, did this letter and essentially said every bank in America can now hold Bitcoin. Now, this letter is only 8 pages. It is full of a bunch of, I would say, legalisms. It's got a lot of buzzwords in it. So I'm not going to cover the letter word by word. I think there's a good breakdown by Bitcoin Magazine that's really going to give you kind of an idea of what actually happened. I will kind of show you what Reuters thinks about this. They're saying kind of the same thing. The mainstream media is obviously always has their bias. But before I do that, let's just go over here to Bitcoin Magazine. Again, I think they did a great breakdown of this. So the OCC, the Office of Comptroller of Currency, confirms that banks can act as intermediaries in crypto transactions. The OCC clarified today that national banks may conduct crypto-related, quote, riskless principal transactions. Now, this is where you can kind of break down the nuance here. I think there is some parallels into very big cases that happened in the U.S. recently, specifically with Samurai, but I'll get into that in a minute. Anyways, just breaking this down, they clarified that national banks, again, may engage in, quote, riskless principal transactions involving crypto assets. It's a new interpreted letter. Excuse me, hold on. Wow, choking on my saliva. In its new interpretive letter 1188, the OCC explained that such transactions allow a bank to act as a principal between two customers, buying crypto from one while simultaneously selling it to another. The bank does not hold the assets in inventory, effectively serving as a broker acting on behalf of the clients. This guidance follows a broader regulatory trend to ease restrictions on crypto activities within the traditional banking sector. Of course, in March, the OCC removed prior requirements for banks to seek advance approval before engaging in certain crypto operations, signaling growing acceptance of digital assets in mainstream finance. In other words, U.S. banks can now offer crypto services in a manner similar to traditional brokerage activities. Of course, I've been telling you guys this for the last week. What we've been seeing from the banking system in the last recent weeks, basically since JP Morgan announced that they're doing a strategy copycat, is like the official green light. Yes, this year, in terms of price, has kind of been a nothing burger. We did for a little bit last night bump above 94-ish K. So we were in the green for the year for about, a couple of hours. Now we're back under that green year. So overall, we're still in the negative. I think it's like 1.5% down this year, but it does make you think that we are seeing a transition from what was in Bitcoin to where we are going in the future. Now, again, I've been saying this for a while on the show. This does look like Wall Street has finally bent the knee. If you take these headlines on the surface, it's very much like this idea, Wall Street finally capitulates to Bitcoin. I've been going a little more tinfoil hat. I'm a little more speculative on this. To me, this seems more on the lines of Wall Street is trying to come into Bitcoin, essentially position themselves as a middleman into Bitcoin and be, hey, trust us, bro. We're going to do good here. I think this is Wall Street trying to co-opt Bitcoin, not in the sense that they can actually stop transactions on the base layer, but try to funnel all of the attention into these Wall Street products. Now, personally, I wouldn't be buying my Bitcoin from a quote unquote trusted bank. To me, that is asinine. But you can see that they're finally positioned. They're finally coming out here and being like, look, we got to adopt or we will literally fade away. That's the initial kind of take here. Obviously, I think this is bullish overall. The banks have now officially capitulated, and the regulations. Of course, we've heard Donald Trump come out and say we're going to make America the Bitcoin superpower of the world. So on that front, it does seem to be slightly bullish. This idea that, hey, now finally after 2025, all the banks can get into Bitcoin in whatever manner they please. Almost every big Wall Street bank, hedge fund, asset manager, they have ETFs, they have Bitcoin products. Now every national bank can officially sell Bitcoin to their clients. So that's like the overall take, but I do want to kind of break down what this kind of framing is. Again, they frame this as a riskless principal transaction. So going further down here, this is where you kind of start to understand, again, that letter had a lot of jargon. It's not really meant for the layman. It's really meant more for the banks. They understand what this is. So in essence, the letter basically confirmed that national banks may engage again in this idea of riskless principal transactions in crypto assets. Per the letter, a riskless principal transaction occurs when a bank buys an asset from one counterparty while simultaneously agrees to sell it immediately to another without holding the asset in inventory, except in rare cases like settlement failures. In this role, the bank functions similar to a broker, taking on limited settlement, market, and credit risk. The letter made a distinction between crypto assets that are securities and those that are not, obviously Bitcoin and everything else. Riskless principal transactions in crypto assets classified as securities are already permissible under existing law as the bank acts without recourse, meaning it does not assume customer risk. The OCC extends this reasoning to crypto assets that are not securities, obviously Bitcoin, framing the activity as part of a broader, quote, business of banking. Under U.S. law, the business of banking is not narrowly defined, allowing banks to engage in new activities that logically extend their traditional functions. The OCC analyzed the activity using 4 factors: its similarity to recognized banking activities, its benefits to banking customers, the natures of the risk involved, and whether state-chartered banks are authorized to perform it. Riskless principal crypto asset transactions align with traditional brokerage and custody services, benefit customers by providing regulated access to crypto assets, and carry risks familiar to banks such as settlement risk, though state regulatory frameworks do not prohibit similar activity, supporting the federal permissibility. So again, this is one of those moments, in my opinion. What do I really know? But this is one of those moments, in my opinion, where we're finally getting to the point where the banks have to acknowledge that Bitcoin, I know they didn't specifically say this, but that Bitcoin is money, that this isn't some alien thing that they're not used to, interacting with. Yes, it's a new technology. Yes, it's a new form of money, but you see how they're trying to frame Bitcoin and put it in a box that they're used to. And this is something that I think Bitcoiners have been saying for a while is, look, you don't really have to do too much difference in accepting Bitcoin. Yes, there is a custodial barrier. Yes, there is like a technical upgrade that you have to do. But essentially, they've been doing this forever. Hence why I've said on the show multiple times that I don't think banks are going away. I know a lot of Bitcoiners for years have been saying like, oh, Bitcoin obsoletes the banks. I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I think we are going to see a lot of, quote, Bitcoin banks in the future. Strategy's been doing this, are actually positioning themselves as strategy bank. We've seen, wow, I think I drank too much coffee. I got cotton mouth right now, guys. Hold on. We've seen Caitlin Long essentially say Custodia, fully backed bank. They shot that down. Now we're seeing that they're finally accepting this, though, of course, they're framing this in a way that, hey, this is a new thing. We're upgrading it. We're here to protect our customers, our clients. It's all regulatorily backed. I don't even think that's a word. But you see, hey, they finally did on some level admit that they have to adapt to Bitcoin. And this has been a greater trend that we've seen all year, rather since November of last year when Trump came out and said, hey, we are going to be the Bitcoin superpower of the world. So on a regulatory front, things are changing very quickly. I think 2025 is that year where, yes, maybe the price didn't do as well as we all thought it was going to do. But as I've said a few times on the show, it does seem like it is that foundational year where finally for better or worse, we do get accepted into the traditional financial system. A lot of people might argue that this is Bitcoin being co-opted. Though I fully believe in the idea of Bitcoin as a Trojan horse, they just let the Trojan horse in. And I think slowly but surely we're going to see that they know they're not going to be able to control Bitcoin on a transactional level. They're going to have to bend the knee. That's kind of my more positive view on this. Let's see what Reuters says about this, because then you can start to kind of get an idea of the bias against Bitcoin. So I'm going to go over to Reuters real quick. And here's their headline. U.S. bank regulators say banks can act as crypto intermediaries. Again, it basically says that, hey, selling Bitcoin, buying Bitcoin from one customer and selling it to another is basically a brokerage act. It's something they already do. I'm not going to read this whole thing because you already know what it's about. Though there is one specific quote in here that I find very interesting. Of course, they start talking about, banks effectively act as brokers. Ever since Trump kind of came out and went pro-Bitcoin, he's rewriting the rules and removing guardrails while his family engages in crypto ventures. And you can start to see, obviously, their bias, whether you like Trump or not. This is the media bias. But this sentence right here, I think, is the most revealing one. Critics say such changes have made the traditional financial sector and loosely regulated and volatile world of cryptocurrencies more interconnected, potentially creating systemic risk. They got to roll out the systemic risk thing again. As I've said on the show multiple times, if, or rather when, the traditional financial system does blow up again, a la 2008, now they do have a good scapegoat. They're going to say, oh, it's because we integrated Bitcoin in this. The systemic risks were so huge. Obviously, we might be seeing a too big to fail moment. Hence why I am not a fan of you guys using a traditional bank to buy Bitcoin. I mean, if they let you take Bitcoin off the exchanges, which we haven't really got more news on that, then I guess whatever of convenience and whatever the lowest fees are for you, do what's best for you. But until you take that Bitcoin into custody under your own control, it sounds like they might be doing some form of 6102, some form of too big to fail, some form of bailout here. And so you start to see what might be happening here. So look, every bank in America can now officially buy and sell Bitcoin to their customers. So huge news from a banking standpoint. Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of the banks, hence why I'm a Bitcoiner in the first place. But it does go to show that we are evolving in the mainstream kind of perspective of what Bitcoin is. Remember, over the years, they've always said Bitcoin's a speculative asset. It's an index of money launderers. It's only for criminals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And literally in the span of 1 year, they fundamentally shifted their perspective on Bitcoin. Now it's no longer just a speculation. It's becoming, a systemic risk to the traditional financial system. It's becoming a pivotal role in your portfolio, a pivotal macro asset, like something you have to hold now. It's really happened a lot quicker than I personally would have expected. But this year, even though the price hasn't ripped as much as we all hoped it would, or as much as we all thought it would, the narrative around Bitcoin has fundamentally shifted. It is no longer something that people can ignore. Every bank in the U.S. now has to embrace it. Well, they don't have to embrace it, but they have the option to embrace it now. So it really is upon the clients of these banks, everyone going out there and being like, hey, I actually want this. And really, it always makes me wonder, because now that every bank is getting into Bitcoin, will this make it more likely that people will start to save in Bitcoin? Because that's what it's really all about. Are people actually saving in Bitcoin? Because, yeah, maybe they can offer these products, but if you don't actually buy it, you don't actually use it. And by use, I mean storing your wealth in it. Then what is this really all about? That's kind of my initial overall take of this. Huge news. every bank now officially, all the red tape is gone. You can officially buy and sell Bitcoin from all of your national banks. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit until these banks roll out products, they figure out their custody, et cetera, but it's all completely clear now. So many of the obstacles surrounding Bitcoin, I would argue in 2025 have been completely cleared out of our way. So look, from a Bitcoin only, as Nico likes to say, from a single issue voter kind of view on this, what the Trump administration has done for Bitcoin in terms of allowing Bitcoin to get out of the gate, I think is extremely bullish. Now, I still have the view that Wall Street is here trying to, in some way, control Bitcoin. I think they're, in that way, trying to co-opt Bitcoin. Use our products, we'll be the middleman in your Bitcoin, which literally the white paper talked against. But this is kind of where I'm thinking. It's like, okay, they're finally here. They finally admitted, they finally bent the knee, but you shouldn't be using their products. As far as I'm concerned, you should be buying Bitcoin and using it directly. Though, you know, I do see the point of, in the future, you know, it's going to be completely, in my opinion, okay to use Bitcoin within the traditional financial system. I think the traditional financial system has no choice but to adopt Bitcoin in any way possible. So obviously, I think there will be a time and a place where Bitcoiners will be able to benefit from the traditional financial system with their Bitcoin. And I think we are at the beginning point of this. Now, I do want to go back a little bit. Let's go back to this article here about on Bitcoin Magazine about what a riskless principal transaction is, because I think this is where it does get a little interesting, considering what just happened with Samurai Wallet and the Samurai devs. When I read this, and I could be wrong here, this could be a completely wrong take here, but it did kind of bring up the idea of what happened with the Samurai Wallet case in general. So I'm going to go back here. And it goes, per the letter, a riskless principal transaction occurs when a bank buys an asset from one counterparty with the simultaneous agreement to sell it immediately to another without holding the asset in inventory, except in rare cases like settlement failures. Again, remember what they said about the Samurai Wallet devs, which is a very interesting kind of rabbit hole right now. It really does sound like a rules for thee, but not for me moment. Because, hey, now every bank can hold Bitcoin, or rather, you know, quote unquote, hold Bitcoin. They aren't actually custodying the Bitcoin. They're just like swapping it like a brokerage from one seller to another. They're kind of doing the like, hey, this is like peer-to-peer Bitcoin payments, you know, but you're just using our platform for this. But literally the entire Samurai Wallet dev, you know, case was built on this idea of custodying this Bitcoin. Does it mean if you are swapping Bitcoin from one person to another without actually ever holding this Bitcoin that you are liable or in control of that Bitcoin? Well, that's what they hinge the entire Samurai Wallet dev case on. They're like, your software facilitated these trades or facilitated these coin joins. Therefore, you are liable for what happens afterwards. You are in control of that Bitcoin. Now, the OCC essentially said, hey, you know, like, you're not really holding Bitcoin. You're not really in control of that Bitcoin if you're just swapping it from one buyer to another. And you're like, okay, so like, you're just making up rules for us, but when you guys do it, it's okay. That's like my initial view on this. I'm like, it sounds like they are essentially doing the same thing. Though Samurai Wallet, of course, is software for coin join or mixing, however you want to call it, or however the legal framework is. And they never actually held the Bitcoin. And now every bank in the US can essentially do the same thing, but since they labeled it a brokerage, it's all good. It's all kosher here. It's all good by the law. And it just makes you think, it's like, man, it really is a two-tiered legal justice system here. Like, it is a two-tiered system. You're either in the in-group or you are not, and they can do whatever they want. And as long as they sign the piece of paper, as long as it looks legal, then you're good to go. But when it comes to the outcasts, the outsiders that are doing things you don't like, then we can make up whatever rules we want. We can throw you in whatever cage we want. So the precedent's been set on the privacy front. It seems to be literally the same rule, in my opinion. You guys can tell me in the chat. Am I crazy here? Am I seeing things that is completely off base? Because it sounds like they're saying the same thing, but they're making two different rules about this. Now, obviously, the OCC is not the DOJ. So they're not the prosecuting wing. They're just making rules for the banks, etc. But it sounds to me like when it comes from the OCC, when it comes to banks, as long as you don't actually custody that Bitcoin, then you're free in the clear. But when it comes to privacy software, if you facilitate coin joins, if you facilitate transactions and you don't custody it, you're still liable for it. Like you see where the hypocrisy is coming. So that's kind of my, like, I guess maybe you could say more nuanced take on this is like, yeah, okay. On the one hand, very cool. Sounds very awesome. You know, bullish adoption of Bitcoin. We're going to the moon. Every bank in the US can now buy Bitcoin, or rather sell Bitcoin or swap Bitcoin. You know, everyone now with their national regional bank, national bank is going to get Bitcoin marketed to them. They're going to see it in their normal bank accounts, and maybe not tomorrow, but soon enough. Like, all right, awesome. Totally cool. Hopefully more people actually buy Bitcoin. But when you kind of look at the hypocrisy of the laws here, you're like, okay, so if you guys never actually custody that Bitcoin, you're free and clear. But when a software that doesn't custody the Bitcoin has people using Bitcoin in a way that you don't like, now they go to jail for 5 years. It's just like, this is a crazy world we're living in. And it really goes into a greater theme I've had on the show, which is it does seem like, on the one hand, Wall Street and, of course, nation banks and governments are adopting Bitcoin. They're bending the knee to Bitcoin, but it really is setting up to have this like two-tiered Bitcoin system. It's either Wall Street Bitcoin, or as I like to call it recently, captured Bitcoin, or it's Bitcoin in self-custody. That is, I think, the battle going on right now. You are either self-custodying your Bitcoin, you're either actually, you know, having control over your own Bitcoin, or you're giving it up for these Wall Street products. And it's starting to get very interesting to see this play out. I think this is like the real attack going on, where Wall Street is embracing Bitcoin. They're coming out here saying, hey, we're launching all these Bitcoin products. It's going to go to 150, 170K next year, as long as you use it with us. To me, it's starting to show the game, really. It's captured Bitcoin versus self-custody Bitcoin, or rather maybe captured Bitcoin and self-custody Bitcoin. Taking control of your Bitcoin is the real powerful Bitcoin. Yes, you can get some benefits from Wall Street and, you know, like, more kudos to you, but you need to have some Bitcoin under your control outside of the system, because you're starting to see where this is probably going to head. You're starting to see where the end goal is going. Yes, on the one hand, on the federal level, they do seem to be embracing Bitcoin. On the Wall Street level, they seem to be embracing Bitcoin. But when it comes to prosecuting Bitcoiners, because maybe we're a little more hardcore, we're a little kind of outside of the box, they're going to do whatever they want to you. Again, it's starting to seem like there's a two-tiered Bitcoin system, a two-tiered Bitcoin fork happening right now. Captured Bitcoin and Bitcoin that you control in self-custody. Hence why I always tell you guys, taking your Bitcoin into custody is the most important thing to be doing. Yes, you can, you know, get some Bitcoin exposure, you can get some gains, et cetera, but the real power in all of this is taking Bitcoin under your control. I don't even really like the idea of self-custody anymore. It seems too complicated. Like, you tell people self-custody, they're like, what the hell does that even mean? It's just like, you need to control your Bitcoin. You need to be able to send that Bitcoin wherever you want, whenever you want, and no one telling you what you can do with that Bitcoin. That's why I kind of like the idea of the main question going on right now in my head, in my opinion, from what I see, is who actually controls Bitcoin. Not necessarily like the core knots debate that's been going on of like, the core devs are controlling Bitcoin and, whatever, CSAM on the blockchain and, the legal implications of that. It's like, no, who has control over your Bitcoin? That is the battle going on. As we've seen throughout the history of humanity, it always comes down to who controls the money and by what mechanisms can they control it. Now we're seeing it start to kind of play out where, yes, they are embracing Bitcoin, but they're only embracing it if they can control the Bitcoin. So look, buy Bitcoin wherever you want. My opinion, I'm not gonna disparage you if you buy Bitcoin from a shitcoin exchange. To me, whatever, as long as you actually buy the Bitcoin and take that Bitcoin into custody, that's all that really matters. You need to control the Bitcoin. The war that I've seen going on is who actually controls the private keys, who actually controls that Bitcoin, who signs off on sending the Bitcoin from point A to point B. If you got to ask someone to sign off on this, if you need a regulator's kind of approval to transact on Bitcoin, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. So big news. Like, the point remains the same. This is huge news. Every bank in America can now sell or buy and sell Bitcoin to their customers. Obviously, I think the implications worldwide are going to start to manifest very soon. Again, whether you like the U.S. or you don't, America does lead the world in not only just culture, but finance. And so when we do something here in the U.S., it will have ripple effects around the world. This is game theory in action. This is playing out in real time. Yes, they're embracing it. Yes, other nations will most likely embrace it. But the real war, in my opinion, is who is actually controlling that Bitcoin. Do you control that Bitcoin? Can you send that Bitcoin wherever you want? Can you send that Bitcoin outside of business working hours, outside of 9 to 5? If that is not the case with the Bitcoin you have, then you really got to make some moves and you really got to figure out, okay, I need to learn self-custody. I need to be able to take my money out of the system. I need to be able to transact when and where I want with this Bitcoin. I think this is the war we've been seeing. I've been seeing this happen all year long. At first, you do kind of get, you get enthusiastic. It's like, all right, the institutions are here. They're going to finally pump our bags. But since they never pumped our bags here, you start to wonder. You're like, okay, like where are the attacks coming from? And I think Wall Street is trying to co-opt Bitcoin in that sense. They want to get in the middle of you and your money, you and your Bitcoin. Again, one of the big narratives that we've been seeing forever is this idea of like, hey, we are the banks. We've held on to your money for hundreds of years. We're the ones that you need to trust. We're the ones you can trust with your money. Don't trust yourself with your money. Like, what kind of idiot is that? Trust us with our federally insured bank accounts, federally insured Bitcoin accounts here. And if you ever hurt yourself, we got your back, man. And I think I think that's what's going on currently. So I don't want to keep repeating myself, but the banks are here, U.S. banks here. Every U.S. bank here is now officially in Bitcoin, which is exactly what Saylor said yesterday at Bitcoin Mina. It's like, I've had conversations with all the biggest sovereign wealth funds, hundreds of hedge fund owners, all the big banks, and they're all trying to find ways to get into Bitcoin. Now the red tape has completely been slashed. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see even more news coming out of banks. And we've been seeing this happen the last couple of weeks. It seems like every other day there's a new bank, there's something going on with the banks and Bitcoin, and now it's officially out. And it does remind me of one of the things Saylor said back in the day, by 2020. He's like, once we get, the law is favorable and all the banks being able to custody Bitcoin, that's when we start ripping to like 5 mil. I forget what the numbers were, but we're at that point. It's official, 100% official. They can get into Bitcoin. We'll see what happens. I guess that's the TLDR to all of this. Let's Opti go chart boy. No chart boy today. Well, yeah, no chart boy. I don't have any chart boy for you guys. All right, guys. Yes, as you can tell, I am doing the show solo today. Nico's being lazy on me, guys. He's dude. I'm about to fire him. He's fired. He's fired from the show. This is the Opti show, simply Opti show now. No. He had a meeting. He had a meeting. Anyways, before I move on, I do want to remind you guys, smash the like button, comment on the show. Let me know what you guys think about it, and of course, hit the subscribe button, guys. We drop the best content, the most content, and you got to know when I go live every day, especially when I'm jacked up on 5 cups of coffee in the morning and I'm sweating in the studio because it's getting crazy over here. This year's been brutal. Anyways, before I move on, big shout out to our boys over at Bitcoin Well. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybitcoin and make sure you are buying Bitcoin the best way possible, which is self-custody by default. They have never lost Bitcoin. They will never lose Bitcoin because they never hold your Bitcoin. So exactly what the banks are just trying to do. It's like, hey, guys, we don't actually hold this Bitcoin, so now we can actually do it. They don't do that. Once your money goes through, it goes directly into your cold storage, which, yes, you need to have a Bitcoin wallet when you sign up, because they basically want to deliver every Bitcoin, every sat that's ever been bought on Bitcoin Well to their customers. This is why we love them. This is why they're our boys. This is why we partnered with them, because they will never lose a sat, because they never hold that Bitcoin. It goes directly to you. So scan the QR code here. And when you sign up, you do get 3 chances to win 1 million sats when you go partake in the Bitcoin Wishing Well. I don't think anyone has won the 1 million sats yet. So, they gotta rig that in my favor. What's going on, Adam? Give me the 1 million sats. All right, guys. Anyways, I'll be right back after this commercial. Interesting news coming out of Coinbase. I forget what this guy, I think he's one of the head Coinbase advisors. I forget. Maybe I'll look it up on the break. But he said some interesting stuff about what's going on in Europe, which really does kind of lean into my theme here, that what America does is starting to make waves around the world. And even though Europe, the EU in particular, has been fighting Bitcoin, trying to launch their CBDC, there might be some more bending the knee. And then we got an update on Saylor strategy war with the MSCI. They dropped a letter about it. And to wrap up the show today, we are going to get potentially Fed rate cuts. So that I don't think I might be on the show long enough to announce that. We'll see if I can ramble for another hour, and we might do it live. All right, be back in 1 second.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. Instead of just writing them down on paper, paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo, and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
Oh, sorry, guys. You guys are cracking me up in the chat. All right. The current Bitcoin price is $92,360 per Bitcoin, which is a negative 26.8% decline from all-time high, or flipped another way, a 26% discount on Bitcoin. The current market cap is 1.84 trillion, still struggling to get above 2 trillion. And the only time that matters, the Bitcoin block height, 927,299. TikTok next block. Okay, so I saw this interesting clip here. Shout out to the Bitcoin Magazine for posting it. And Coinbase's John DeAgostino. Damn, I can't speak today. DeGostino. I think it's DeGostino. He's actually head of strategy for Coinbase Institutional. So he says more Eurozone countries will follow the Czech Republic and buy Bitcoin. Remember what the Czech Republic did. They announced a Bitcoin buy. They also eliminated capital gains tax on Bitcoin if you hold it for, I believe it was over 3 years. This is what he said yesterday. It is pretty interesting. Again, I did make the case last week, I believe it was last week, that we are starting to see an interesting trend in Europe. And that is that as much as the ECB and the EU are trying to really force everyone into the MiCA laws, which really aren't that beneficial for the users of Bitcoin, it's actually kind of more of a detriment. We are starting to see this trend, and maybe I'm seeing into things, but this is kind of the vibe that I'm getting. This is kind of what I'm seeing come down the pipeline. It does look like we are starting to see a break from the ECB MiCA law standard. It looks like countries are looking at this, and they haven't officially said this, but it's essentially them saying like, yo, if we want to maintain even being close in the race to what the U.S. is doing, these MiCA laws are really a hindrance on our countries. Obviously, it's not particularly Christine Lagarde going out there and being like, all right, we completely scrap this. But a lot of countries are kind of moving away from these MiCA laws and starting to announce that, hey, we actually do like Bitcoin. And remember, one of the big things that happened around when the Czech Republic came out and was so pro-Bitcoin, Christine Lagarde was like, no, I've talked to all the Eurozone members. I talked to everyone in the EU, and I can very confidently tell you that no one is going to buy Bitcoin. Well, maybe Christine Lagarde's chokehold is not as strong as she likes to kind of propagandize, because it seems like we might be getting something else down the pipeline. So let's listen to this clip real quick, and then I will speculate a little bit.
The Czech National Bank
Go on.
starting to test.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but the Czech National Bank chose very well in their service providers. I will give them kudos for who they chose for their service providers. And the fact that an Eurozone central bank is taking on, it's a small amount, it's $1 million of Bitcoin, but they're putting Bitcoin on their national treasury, and they are experimenting with and learning in real time using Bitcoin for payments. That is big. No disrespect to El Salvador, no disrespect to some of the other countries that have chosen to do it. This wasn't I want to shake up my economy and because I'm heading in the wrong direction, and I want to pivot using Bitcoin as to some degree, speculative tool. That I admire that decision on behalf of El Salvador, but we are a stable Eurozone country. We don't have to do this. We have access to the EU window. We have access to EU borrow, but we are going to go through all the bells and whistles, do the RFP, choose the vendors, and we are going to make it national policy to begin to experiment with this asset. That type of thing is contagious, and I can see more Eurozone companies following suit very, very shortly.
Well, I think he kind of misspoke at the end. That's my take. He started off with Eurozone countries, and then he said Eurozone companies. Maybe he didn't misspeak there. But as you kind of heard in the beginning, he's like, look, I can't really say too much, which really makes you wonder that this is probably already happening. Maybe they haven't fully announced their Bitcoin buys, but they are preparing to do these, quote, test programs here. So it sounds like we're going to see more European countries start to kind of fall away from the ECB's pro-CBDC movement, start to embrace Bitcoin, which really makes you wonder, and it kind of goes back to the initial theme of how can they co-opt Bitcoin, and that's who controls the keys of Bitcoin. Again, the ECB, they've been saying they're going to drop a CBDC for years now. They say, hey, it's right around the corner. The last time they said that was October. It's ready in October. And then in October, they announced, it might be ready by 2027. It does seem to be a little too late on that front. And maybe this is what countries in the Eurozone are seeing. They're like, okay, look, I know the ECB, I know Christine Lagarde has been very adamant about a CBDC, a European CBDC to unite the Eurozone. And, we all have one language here. But I'm starting to see that there might be some dissent here. There might be people realizing, like, if we do not adopt this thing, if we do not figure out how to use this thing, we are going to get cooked. And what is interesting about that clip is when he's talking about the El Salvador stuff, and I really enjoyed that because, look, if we're being honest here, I love El Salvador. I love what Nayib Bukele did. I think El Salvador will fundamentally, throughout the history of Bitcoin, be the first nation to adopt Bitcoin. You can never take that away from them. But I think the point that he said, which I might actually differ a little bit, but where he said, look, a big European country adopting Bitcoin has way more of an impact than El Salvador doing it. And just looking at the numbers, don't freak out at me. I know there's a lot of El Salvador Bitcoin lovers. I love El Salvador. I love what the project that Bukele is doing. But we got to remember, El Salvador's GDP is $32 billion. I repeat, $32 billion. It's not that big. It's not a big country. Yes, it put it on the map. But once we see a big first world country in Europe, like Czech Republic is no small feat. But again, they did just like a $1 million Bitcoin buy. But once we see one of the heavy hitters, in my opinion, come out and be like, yeah, we're going to go full pro Bitcoin, I think the chokehold that Christine Lagarde and the ECB has is really going to start to crumble. And you're really going to see the dominoes fall very quickly. So if we see something happen, and it could be a 2026, most likely in 2026, we'll get another big announcement. It's going to be interesting if it happens very early in 2026 or late in 2026. I think the game's being fundamentally shifted right now, which goes back to the things I said in the beginning segment of the show. What the U.S. does, even though Europe fights Bitcoin, even though Europe is so against whatever Trump and America does, they are being forced to adopt Bitcoin. It's really like the idea that Bitcoin will be adopted like gunpowder. It's a Mexican standoff. If you do not adopt Bitcoin, you are literally hurting yourself, your country. You have to adopt it. You have to be a quick mover on this. If someone beats you to the punch, they can potentially take all of the marbles here. And I think this is what we're seeing right now. I think the game theory on a nation state level, even on a central bank level, is starting to really play out. They cannot keep doing what they've been doing. Yes, quote unquote, Operation Choke Point 2.0 has ended. So it was okay. It was very kosher for everyone to fight Bitcoin. Now, if you fight Bitcoin, you will lose. Not only will you lose your seat, your position, but you're going to lose your position in the world. Now, I know that's a bit hyperbolic. I know it's a little early to be saying that, but I think it's starting to become very true. Yes, we are in the early stages of Bitcoin going, hyper Bitcoin, but you cannot stand on the sidelines anymore. You have to make a move. The only winning move is you have to participate. If you don't, you're going to get left behind. That's my take. I'm holding to it. That's all I got to say here. Delusional perma bulls. Yes, literally 100%. Dude, caught with red hands. Yes, 100%. Oh my God, you guys are funny. Okay. Let's see. I actually silently predicted that a major European. Yeah, 100%. Look, I'm not the biggest on legal tender status personally. But it is happening a lot quicker than I also imagined. I thought it was going to take a couple of years. It literally, guys, I think this is one of the things that we really fundamentally kind of underestimate, or really maybe, don't talk about too much. But in one literal year, actually, 11 months and some days. Actually, I guess you could say it's been more than a year. No. We'll say less than a year. How quickly has the narrative around Bitcoin shifted? It's shifted on a dime. And remember what I've been telling you guys for a while. It's like these big institutions, they move like the Titanic. They moved a lot quicker than you kind of expect them to move. You thought they would sit on their hands. You think they would kind of, delay these things, but it really does kind of exaggerate. Maybe not exaggerate's the right word. It really kind of does exemplify how powerful the game theory is, which really goes into what I've been telling you guys, or what is kind of my idea here is you cannot underestimate the people in power. They're not as dumb as we all make them out to be. They have a lot to lose here. And they're making moves very quickly to position themselves so that they can maintain control, so they can maintain their wealth. I've been I don't know if I've said this on the show. Maybe it's a hot take. It really isn't, but I've been off air kind of joking. And I've said on the show that I think the people that need Bitcoin the most currently are the very people that we are trying to disintermediate. If you are in the position of being close to the money printer, close to the Cantillon effect, if you are seeing what's going on in the system, and if we're seeing it correctly, which is, I'm not going full doomer, but if there are cracks in the system and you start to realize that, wow, my influence, my power, my control, my status is at jeopardy here if this thing blows up, they need an asset just like this. They need Bitcoin just as much, if not more, than anyone else. It's like, yeah, I know Nico makes fun of me because I said something similar to like, I didn't actually say this, okay? So don't quote me on this, but he was joking and saying that I said something on the lines of like, Opti's like against the middle class or something. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is if you have a lot of wealth in the traditional financial system, in the fiat system, and you are seeing what we're seeing, and we're seeing this with sober eyes, then you have a lot more to protect. If you have nothing, if you have zero money, you could probably keep doing what you're doing. But if you have a lot of wealth and you're trying to protect it, to me, it seems like there's only one way to protect that. Now, this isn't me, hating on lower middle class people, lower income people. I'm just saying, if you have a lot of wealth, and if what we're seeing is correct, then you have a lot more to protect, and you have more of an incentive to figure out whether this Bitcoin thing is actually what we all say it is. It's all I've been saying, guys. So, true, you need a hard asset of some sort. Yes, 100%. Okay, guys, I'll be right back. We're going to cover Saylor's response to MSCI.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones? They don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY.
Okay, guys, we are back. We are back. You know, off topic, I should have probably taken a 6 coffee because I'm crashing now. Anyways, maybe I need to do a little context. Remember, if you're kind of new to the show, you're not that obsessed with Bitcoin news, you're not hanging out on Twitter as much as we are. There was a saga a couple of weeks ago. It's actually still been kind of ongoing, where JP Morgan took a 40-day-old report. They fudded strategy, which they essentially used this old report to put doubts on strategy's business model, you know, what's going on. They said, hey, look at these MSCI rule changes. It's going to potentially hurt strategy. It's not a good look for strategy. It's basically JP Morgan. You know, Jamie Dimon's like, hey, you know, what do I know? This isn't a good look for strategy. And then literally like the day after, I believe, maybe it was the following week. I forget. I'm losing track of time over here. I'm going crazy over here, guys. I'm literally going crazy. Don't remember days anymore. But they basically said, hey, strategy might be in trouble. Look at these rule changes, not looking good for strategy, not looking good for Bitcoin. And then shortly after they launched basically a strategy copycat note structure. Essentially, they're like, look, the strategy thing is bad. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, but hey, maybe this JP Morgan version is something you'll like. And then the price kind of dumped, and literally on essentially a local bottom at 80K, JP Morgan announces this strategy copycat. And they're like, but look, the strategy one's bad, but maybe this JP Morgan one's good. And then it all came out that JP Morgan had a huge short on strategy. They announced a Bitcoin product that essentially the last local bottom. This report was 40 days old, and you're like, what in the world of manipulation are we seeing playing out right now? You know, Saylor came out and said, like, doesn't bother me. We're unaffected. Doesn't matter. He did kind of, you know, a little bit of Twitter PR, basically saying this doesn't affect us, yada, yada, yada. And now they did like a full press release on it. So here's the first, like, kind of the initial kind of takeaways. I might read a little bit of the article, the press release, but this is basically the overall here. So Strategy's response to MSCI's proposed digital asset treasury exclusion. So MSCI proposes to exclude digital asset treasuries, or DATs, like Strategy, from MSCI's global investable market indexes. We strongly disagree with MSCI's proposal for the following reasons. 1, digital asset treasuries are operating companies, not investment funds. 2, the proposal's digital asset specific 50% threshold is arbitrary, discriminatory, and unworkable. 3, the proposal improperly injects policy considerations into indexing. And 4, the proposal conflicts with U.S. policy and would stifle innovation. We ask MSCI to revoke its proposal. Please voice your support by registering below and sharing our letter on Twitter and LinkedIn. So that's the basic overview. I will read a little bit of this, just, I guess, because why not? Anyways, they wrote in response to MSCI's invitation for feedback on its proposed eligibility test for their global investable market indexes, which would exclude all companies whose digital asset holdings represent 50% or more of total assets. Strategy believes its combination of operational excellence, strategic Bitcoin reserve, and focus on technological innovation positions the company as a leader in both the digital assets and enterprise analytics sectors, offering a unique opportunity for long-term value creation. Strategy understands and supports MSCI's efforts to implement consistent eligibility standards across its indices, but MSCI's proposal to exclude companies whose balance sheets consist of more than 50% digital assets is misguided and would have profoundly harmful consequences, as explained below. And here, where they do try to differentiate themselves, but DATs, or digital asset treasuries, are operating companies, not investment funds. Most fundamentally, the proposal rests on a mischaracterization of the business models of digital asset treasuries like Strategy. Strategy is not an investment fund and does not passively hold Bitcoin. Strategy is an operating business that actively uses the Bitcoin it holds to create returns for shareholders. Today, Strategy provides novel Bitcoin-backed digital credit instruments analogous to those historically offered by banks and insurance companies. And Strategy, unlike an investment fund, retains the operational flexibility to adapt its value creation strategies as the revolutionary technology underlying Bitcoin evolves. That operational flexibility is what Strategy's investors value and is what distinguishes Strategy from digital asset investment funds. That Strategy and other digital asset treasuries invest in a single asset class makes them no different from REITs or REITs or oil companies. MSCI does not classify those businesses as investment funds, and that should be treated no differently. I think that's the big kind of takeaway here, but I'll read a little more. The proposal's digital asset specific 50% threshold is discriminatory, arbitrary, and unworkable. The proposal's 50% rule arbitrarily singles out digital asset businesses for uniquely unfavorable treatment while leaving untouched businesses in other industries such as oil, timber, gold, media, and entertainment, and real estate that have similarly concentrated holdings in a single asset type. And there's no way to implement the proposed 50% rule consistently or fairly. Asset price swings, changes in the application of accounting principles, and other factors relevant to balance sheet accounting would lead to index instability as digital asset treasuries whipsaw on and off MSCI's indices. MSCI would need to develop novel metrics and methods for measuring balance sheet concentration and monitoring circumvention. So, again, TLDR, MSCI should not implement a rule that will lead it to be consistently auditing companies under arbitrary, inconsistent, and evolving standards. And then this obviously leads to it improperly injects policy considerations into indexing. Now, I am no legalese expert. I'm no Wall Street TradFi expert. But this does sound like a, metaphorical kill shot here. I think it's really showing that the whole kind of move from MSCI to potentially disregarding Strategy because they have this concentration of 50% of Bitcoin. I really do think it exposes this as not just a political move, but an ideological move against Bitcoin. I think it's one of those they're scared moments. And obviously the fact that JP Morgan rolled this out about a month and a half after it was actually proposed as this really bad thing just kind of shows you the manipulation tactics, if you will, coming from Wall Street. They are playing for all the marbles. They're not playing fair, quote unquote. And I don't even like the idea of playing fair because we are talking about Wall Street. We are talking about Wall Street greed. We are talking about, for lack of better terms, capitalism as its finest, though I would venture to argue that we're really not in a capitalist system, but that's whatever. That's a total other conversation, and I'm not here to nitpick around it. But it does show you that the only reason they are even talking about this is because of Bitcoin. They don't do this for any other commodities company, whether that's oil, lumber, anything. As it was stated here, what did it say here? It said, you don't do this in other industries as oil, timber, gold, media, entertainment, nor real estate. But since it's Bitcoin, since they really don't want people to either adopt Bitcoin, use Bitcoin, they don't want this to get out of the gate, they're making this as some kind of big red, target on any of these digital asset treasury companies. Now, I am not yeah, the chat. Sorry. I am not the biggest digital asset treasury or Bitcoin treasury company. I don't even like the word digital asset. I'm not the biggest Bitcoin treasury guy. I jokingly said that I should have bought it when it was going like 15x, and now I feel okay about not buying it. But dude, if MicroStrategy is bottoming out now, I need to figure out how to get some. Anyway, that's totally different conversation. But it does look like they are singling out the Bitcoin industry because, one, as I said earlier, they want to be the ones that can profit off of Bitcoin. They want their Wall Street products to be the only ones in the market. But they're way too late to this. I don't think any company can really catch up to what Michael Saylor did. He had a 5-year head start. He's damn near about to get 1 million Bitcoin under his company treasury. I think this is one of those moves where JP Morgan came in and they tried to handicap Strategy and Saylor's ability to stack more Bitcoin because they were launching a product. And I think it's becoming very obvious that JP Morgan is using their minions, or Wall Street is using their minions to kind of scare people away from buying Bitcoin treasury companies, which I probably wouldn't do unless you have money in TradFi and it's hard for you to get out of Bitcoin. Then that's a great alternative. But it really is, as I said, a political and ideological move here. They wanted to handicap Bitcoin treasury companies because I think they know that what Saylor is doing right now, it really does throw a wrench into their traditional business models. And as Saylor said, and I didn't even think about this, but I forget who it was. Someone was trolling me in the chat the other day, and they're like, yo, saying that Strategy is doing the same thing as like the Bank of England is really not a good analogy here, Opti. Like, one of the one of the worst banks ever. Like, you probably shouldn't say that. Yeah, whatever. But, Strategy said it themselves. So, 42 IQ for the win here. Today's Strategy provides novel Bitcoin-backed digital credit instruments analogous to those historically offered by banks and insurance companies. Guys, I literally said the same thing. What Strategy is doing is no different than what normal banks are doing right now. This is all they do. They, get an asset, depending on what the asset is, take out some debt, try to buy more of that asset. That's what they do. This is probably one of the reasons why they are so scared. They're like, damn, our business model just got exposed. And he's doing it with this thing that potentially goes up, 30% CAGR every year, going up forever, probably going to go to 1 million plus. There's only 21 million of this thing. I think they are really scared right now. This is like the they're scared meme right now. Like, oh, how cute. They're scared right now. I think the game's being totally exposed. They're maybe it's because I'm biased. Maybe it's because I'm a Bitcoiner. Obviously, I have a bias against these companies, these banks, these institutions, because I am a Bitcoiner. But I think it really does expose the game being played right now. They are terrified of Bitcoin getting out there. They don't want people using Bitcoin directly. They don't want to see Bitcoin products built that will essentially, take away from their business products. Like, this is how competition plays out. This is the then they fight you stage, and they're pulling out every dirty trick they can, whether you think it's dirty or just, all is fair and love and war. War here is business, in my opinion. I always like to think of business kind of as war. It's a proxy for not going to war. I think this is what's happening. And I think it's becoming very clear that this is what's happening, which really just makes me think, as much as they want to say Bitcoin is, metaphorically dead, like this time's for real. I think it really says the opposite. Like, Bitcoin is for real. Bitcoin is the thing that terrifies them. I'm not one of these guys that's a Bitcoiner that says, oh, these people are dumb. They don't understand Bitcoin. This is why they always talk bad about Bitcoin. They haven't done the 40 hours a week of podcasts, and they haven't read the 10 books about Bitcoin. I don't think that's the case at all. I think they know exactly what Bitcoin is, what it does, and they're trying to do whatever they can so that more people don't use it. That's my view on this. I think it's, I've laid it out all year long. I think as more information comes out, it's becoming very obvious. They know exactly what Bitcoin is. They know exactly what it will do, but very publicly, they have to go out and kind of play dumb, not and basically not give any cent to retail out there that they should probably own this thing. They're going to fight this till the death. Yes, they're kind of embracing it. They really don't want to see Bitcoin win. That's my take on this. Okay, 11 minutes to rate cut. All right, I might I think I'll stay on. I'll stay on for 11 minutes. I'll stay on. So one more commercial break, and then I'll kind of chat about the odds, and then we'll kind of bullshit a little bit. And I should be on for another 11 minutes. So we'll cover it live. And hey, guys, actually, maybe I was wrong. Maybe we will get a 1 minute chart on today's show. All right, I'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, bitcoinben.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Ben's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank. And you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys. Tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth. And join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io. Join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
All right, guys, before I go on, I do like this comment here from Chef Tommy. He goes, to me, strategy is showing the world how much debt that TradFi uses to keep control. I think that's a pretty good take, because he's literally doing the same thing, but he's doing it with, quote, digital credit. And they're terrified. They're like, shit, the game's exposed. Just don't look at what Saylor's doing. Don't look at what Strategy's doing. You know, it's really a distraction kind of game being played on right now. Remember, attention, we are in the attention economy. And if they can distract you from what is actually happening, then you go on and you live in this fiat world, and you live in this kind of, I don't know, unreality of like, this is how things work. And then once you really latch onto the signal, you realize, oh shit, like everything is fake. Everything is a Truman Show. Anyways, yeah, last bit on that. Okay, so what do I got here? I got a CNBC article here. I did pull up the 1 minute chart. I know you guys love the 1 minute chart. Do what PSA context, don't trade the 1 minute chart, but I do like watching the 1 minute chart. Anyways, here's CNBC, and it goes, the Fed meeting is likely to feature a rate cut and a lot more. Here's what to expect. This came out yesterday, but you know, whatever. It goes, Federal Reserve is poised to deliver its 3rd straight interest rate cut Wednesday, today, while simultaneously firing a warning shot about what's ahead. The rate-setting FOMC is split between members who favor cuts to head off further weakness in the labor market and those who think easing has gone far enough and threatens to aggravate inflation. In addition to the rate decision and the statement, investors will be watching an update to the, quote, dot plot of individual officials' rate expectation and economic projections. And remember the last time we got this, I was telling you guys, like, the Fed is just as confused as the market is. It was basically split down the middle. Some saying we need more rate cuts. Some saying we've cut enough. Some saying it's going to destroy everything. They're just as confused as the market is, which really always makes you wonder, like, if you're waiting for the Fed's decisions, if you're waiting on people that are confused about what's going on, like they're touted as being like, the economic PhDs are here, bro. Like, trust me, bro. I have a PhD in economics, so I can tell you the signals that you need to trade off of. And if they're all split and just as confused as the retail is, why are we listening to them? Anyways, a couple minutes from now. So I did pull up, before the show, what we might be expecting. Again, we do like to use the prediction markets, not necessarily because they are facts, because I think it does tell you about sentiment. People have to really put money on the line here to kind of, again, put their money where their mouth is. And so here we have it. Let's see. So the market might be pricing in a 25 bip cut. It's almost run away. This is currently 97% chance that we're going to see a 25 bit cut. There's a 3% chance on this one. And here, there's $376 million in volume here, guys. So no change, 3%, 50 bips cut, less than 1%. And less than 1% says 25 bip increase. Okay. Let's see. I saw another one. This one's a little smaller, 15K. But are we going to see a 25 bit cut odds on December 10th? It looks, this one doesn't have much volume, so we'll go back to this one. Looks like everyone is pricing in 25 bit cut. Now, one of the things that I do want to hit on, since we got a couple of minutes here, and maybe I'll pull up Twitter as well. One of the things that I do want to hit on is usually Bitcoiners like to say that, rate cuts are bullish, like easier money, more liquidity, low interest rates, which means more people are going to want to borrow, which means the money supply is going to expand. What we have noticed the last couple rate cuts is the Bitcoin price has kind of tanked on them. So I wouldn't be surprised if we did already price in rate cuts and then we see some volatility to the downside in a couple of minutes. Usually you kind of get an initial spike and then, Jay Powell will talk. And then you might see a lot of volatility while he's talking, and then you'll really kind of understand what's going on. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of volatility. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a dump. But long term, I would argue this is going to be super bullish. But we haven't really seen the, rate cuts happen, Bitcoin price rips. And look at that. 1 minute chart here. We are kind of dumping a little bit. So what is this? What's 1840? Is that 6:40 in the morning? No. What's 1840? Military time's hard. All right, so we're dumping. My buddy's probably right. The rate cuts were priced in and we're going to dump. Okay. Oh, wait, I didn't show you guys. Okay, 1 minute chart is tanking. Yes. Yeah, and for those that aren't familiar, rate cut announcement in 3 minutes, and then Powell will speak at 2:30. I watched the last one, but I was also watching the 1 minute chart as it was happening, and man, dude, it was just whipsawing. Yeah, sorry, dude, it's here. It's a little dumpy. Not gonna lie, it's a little dumpy here, guys. So, what would this get down to? 92. Okay. All right. Oh. Are we going to get a little Fed rate pre-pump and then a real massive dump? All right. I'm refreshing Twitter. So 2 minute announcement. I'm sure we will get it in real time and we'll watch the 1 minute chart as the announcement happens. 1 minute equals manipulation scare. Yes. Let's see. It doesn't matter what Powell says. He's out and a massive rate cuts are coming. Anyone who trades off Powell is a moron. I mean, I totally agree on this. I'm totally 100% in agreement on this, but we'll see. Yo, chat, chill. Yo, chat. Hey, yo, chat, chill. All right, we got a little action. All right, what? Less than about a minute. 1 minute. Breaking. 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 million. Dude, don't be scared. Cheap sats. Cheap sats. Cheap sats on the horizon. Let's see. 1 more minute. I really need the like what's that one? Like do 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 do. I forget. I'm forgetting. Maybe he's going to raise rates. Maybe, dude. Maybe. I doubt that. Though I did hear speculation that a lot of people are pricing in a 25 bit cut. Many people are saying that he might not cut it all and just delay it. So that's gonna be interesting. That's gonna be super interesting. Yes, FOMC at 2:30. The meeting. Jeopardy. Yes. Switch to the 30. I don't think I have the 30-second chart. Don't you have to buy that? Yeah. You gotta buy that. I don't have that. Okay. We're back. Oh, we're pumping. What did it say? Let's see. Breaking. Federal Reserve cuts interest rates by 25 bips. So it is official. Another 25 bip rate cut. Let's go. All right, we'll go back to the 1 minute chart. Let's go. All right, this is why I like to watch the 1 minute chart. Okay. All right, boys. All right. Well, we'll let it ride a little bit. Let me I forget where the rate cuts are. I think now it's official. Dude, it's ripping. Let's go. Let's see. It's ripping. What's it ripping? Dude, it ripped a 0.61%. That's why I love watching that's why I tell you guys do not trade the 1 minute chart, because your psychology. Oh, and then now we're dumping. God, you gotta love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, I'm just getting the told you text. What did you tell me? I don't text me again. What did you tell me? I think the rate cuts, or the official rates, if I remember, I'm gonna check right now. I think last time it was like 3.75 to 4. So yeah, so now officially, if we just cut 25 bips, it is 3.5 to 3.75% official rates. So there we go. I know what my friend said. He said rate cuts coming December 10th, which means Bitcoin's going to rip. We'll see. We will see, boys and girls. We will see. So let's see. Breakout, retest, resumption. Opti 1 minute chart goated. Yes, this is a pump for ants. 100%. Oh yeah, and guys, sorry, I'm colorblind here. So for you guys watching, the green is blue and the red's obviously red. I can just see the chart better, and it helps me see everything. Oh, my buddy's funny. Okay, so we pumped, and it looks like we are dumping now. There we go. There it is. All right, guys, so it's official. 25 bit rate cuts. If you're a macro nerd, kind of like myself, we'll see what happens when Jay Powell, dude, it just fully reprice. Oh man, that's so funny. This is why I'm telling you, do not trade. Look at this. Let's go. All right. So maybe I was right. I guess I was right. We are getting some cheap sats on the table here. I'll zoom out a little bit. You guys can see a little bit of my chart boiling since you're hanging out with me here. We'll see what happens here. These are just on my levels right now. Currently, this like 92K level. If we break up out of that, next one I'm looking is roughly around 107, 108, and then of course all-time high. Though I am kind of seeing a little trend evolving here, so it's going to be interesting if we go back down to it. But I don't trade. All right. I just like to chart boy a little bit, see if I can guess where the price is going. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, guys. Anyways, that's it for today. It's all I got. Opti is a market maker. Not at all, dude. Not at all. All right, guys. I love you. And also, hey, what do you think about just simply Opti? What do you think about me just doing the show alone forever? No, I don't want to do it forever. I don't want to do it forever. But hey, I kind of killed it today. We kind of killed it. Let me see the number. Yeah, the numbers are good. You guys like hanging out with me. It's a little more light when I do it. Huh? It's a little more fun. All right. Sorry, the milkshake machine is broken today. Yeah, totally, dude. All right. Peace out, guys. I love you. It's official. 25-bit rate cut. Actually, maybe one last thing. As we've been talking about, I know they've been saying a lot of things about the Fed acting political, the Fed being independent. Obviously, they are beholden to the markets. And what we're seeing right now is, one, depending on who you're listening to, like the economy is effed. You know, no one feels like they're making money. No one's sure what's going on. No one knows what signals to trade against. No one is even able to really plan economically for their business. But what we're seeing is the projection and the telegraphing of what they want to do. They want to cut rates. They want to turn the money printer back on. Obviously, QT just ended. So it does seem like the Mar-a-Lago Accords are playing out in real time. I've done some breakdowns on this. If you want to really kind of update what this all means, I know I'm not really supposed to do this, but I would recommend you go to Mark Moss's YouTube channel. And I think he's got a video called like Mar-a-Lago Accords. It's like 30 minutes. He'll lay out exactly what I also believe is going on. I think it's very obvious what's going on. It's about like a 30-minute video. I did go down like a 2-hour rabbit hole watching some of Mark Moss's content about a month ago, and it just made perfect sense to me. So I think that's what's going on. Dude, they're cutting rates. The money printer is going to get turned on. They're going to do QE by any other name. They want easy money. This is what the Trump administration wants. And further, as we move into 2026, they have to figure out the economy before the elections. And the only tools they really have is essentially blast the system with a bunch of liquidity, devalue the dollar so that people on paper feel richer. They're going to destroy your purchasing power. That's just the game. I didn't make the rules. I'm just relaying what the game is. I'm just relaying what they're telling us. They want to destroy the purchasing power of the dollar so that they have a better balance globally right now. Obviously, there's, problems in trade. Trump's all over the trade wars. Trump's all over the tariffs. They're trying to figure out how they can manage this. They basically only have two tools here, like raise interest rates, which will probably break things, or destroy the purchasing power, which is like their kind of get out of jail free card. But that hurts Main Street. So they're obviously not going to hurt themselves. They're gonna destroy the purchasing power. So they're doing exactly what they've been saying. Oh, look, hold on, before I go, we'll show you the 1-minute chart one more time. It rebounded. This is what I'm saying, guys. Do not trade around the FOMC meeting unless you know what you're doing. Because look at this whipsaw action in the span of what? 20 minutes? Wouldn't do that. Wouldn't be me. Anyways, love you guys. Yeah, this is it. Good job, Nate. Weaker dollar makes the markets look good. Exactly. So they need a weaker dollar. Anyways, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. Enjoy your Wednesday. Eat some good food. I think I'm going to be a fat boy today. Dude, I'm going to get a burger or something. Anyways, peace out, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.